Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Sonia Siddiqui and joining us today is Joy Henderson. Hi Joy.
Hi, thank you.
So Joy is our employment consultant at our North York location, and she's going to be talking about a second career. And before she gets into it, I just want to make sure that everyone is properly connected. So on the next slide, I will just go over a few logistics on how to best watch the webinar. Thank you, Joy. So you are all on listen only mode. We will not be able to hear you or see you. So please type in your questions into the Q&A tab found at the bottom of your screen. Joy will be taking your questions towards the end of her presentation. For best results, please use a laptop or a desktop computer using Google Chrome. And if you are using mobile devices such as your cell phones or tablets, I recommend downloading the Zoom app for a better quality of the webinar. And moving forward. Thank you, Joy. Just to tell you a little bit about ACCES, we've been around for over 30 years helping job seekers such as yourselves. Just in the past year alone, we were able to serve over 34,000 job seekers. We work with over, we have over 2,200 employer connections, and that number is always growing as we have dedicated teams of job developers who are always looking out for our clients, trying to get them connected to employers. We've got over 30 tailored programs, and to find out what they are, go on our website and check it out. These include our sector-specific bridging programs, specifically for newcomers. We have programs for women, for youth, entrepreneurs, and we'll tell you more towards the end of the presentation as well. We've got 6 physical locations in the GTA right now, with our 7th newest location opening up in Newmarket. And right now, our main location is online. So if you are interested in any of our programs or getting in touch with any of our employment consultants, you can do that online. All of our programs are currently being delivered online as well. It is business as usual at ACCES Employment. We are all working 9 to 5. So if you do need to get in touch with your own employment consultant, or if you'd like to speak to a new one to start your job search, we are all here to help. And again, I'll tell you more about that towards the end of the presentation. And I'm going to hand it over to Joy.
Thank you so much, Sonia. So again, my name is Joy Henderson, and I'm an employment consultant with ACCES Employment. I've been with ACCES for about 13 years, and I've been involved in different programs and services, including Second Career. So I'm happy to be able to provide you with some more information about that program today. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to define sort of what is Second Career. I can give you a little bit more of an overview of what the program is and how it works. We're going to talk a little bit about what are the requirements, so you can determine if you think you may qualify. I would encourage everyone to reach out to their closest location of ACCES at the end of this session, whether you think you qualify or not, because you'll find that there are lots of different ways that we can support clients through different programs and services, and even through referring to other types of services that you may not already know about. So I would encourage everyone to get in touch whether you believe that you qualify for this program or not. And we'll talk a little bit about the next steps. I am going to just turn off my video so that everyone can sort of just focus on the information that's being shared. So I'll do that now, and then we'll go forward. Okay. So what is Second Career? Basically, it is a occupational skills training program that supports laid off, unemployed individuals to find employment in an in-demand sector. And it provides financial assistance to offset some of the training costs. That's the objective of the program, is to assist individuals to return to employment by the most cost-effective path. So the type of skills training that this may include would be skills training that for occupations that have good employment prospects. That's sort of a key factor with this training, of course, and for yourselves as well. You know, assuring that at the end of the training, you are equipped to find work in a field that where there are actually jobs available is important. It is for programs that lead to a certificate or a diploma, so that's part of it as well. And the maximum funding for this would be $28,000, and that would include tuition and living costs. So the total amount is $28,000. So we'll talk a little bit about the different sort of levels to determine whether or not you qualify. The first level is eligibility. So in order to meet the eligibility criteria, you need to have been laid off from your job. You need to meet that sort of baseline requirement, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about what that might look like. Then you need to be assessed for your suitability, and that is the piece where you need to sort of demonstrate that you have a strong need for this skills training. And then the third piece is the financial need. So that is the piece where it's calculated how much financial assistance you may qualify for. So for eligibility, you need to have been laid off on or after January 1st, 2005. You need to be unemployed and an Ontario resident. You need to be a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident or approved convention refugee or refugee claimant. And the training that you're interested in needs to have good labor prospects. So some additional considerations. If you've been laid off and received a recall to work notice, you may still qualify as long as it's shown that or determined that second career would be the most appropriate intervention for you as opposed to going back to your job. Other additional considerations, if you were required to take early retirement, you may still qualify. If you quit your job or were fired from your interim job, so if you quit or were fired from an interim job after being laid off from a job in your field, you may still qualify. And if you are seasonally unemployed, you also may still qualify. Particularly in that case, if you can demonstrate that through training, you can lengthen your work year. So you can sort of reduce the period of time that you would be laid off from. So people who may be ineligible would be if you are restricted from receiving assistance under OSAP, then you would be ineligible. And reasons why you might be restricted from receiving assistance under OSAP would be if you applied for OSAP and received it and did not provide all the required information and documents relating to OSAP, or if you provided incorrect information relating to OSAP. If you were restricted from receiving assistance under OSAP, you would be informed about that, so you would know. Also, if you began your skills training before receiving ministry approval. So if you are already part of the way through a training program, Second Career wouldn't be able to help you to complete that program. So it's for new training that you're taking. If you were laid off on or after January 1st, 2005, and you worked in a full-time job in your field and you quit or you were fired, then you wouldn't be eligible. If you have been working in a full-time job in your field after parental benefits have ended, or if you're in a work sharing program, if you've taken a leave of absence, or if you completed a skills training program within the last 2 years. Also, if you already intended to return to school in the upcoming academic year. So again, if you are on a summer break from your training program that you're already involved in, then you wouldn't be eligible. So you may potentially be eligible if you can't pursue employment in the occupation that you were trained for due to medical concerns, or if you were laid off from the manufacturing sector on or after January 1st, 2019, even if you completed other training within the past 2 years. So that is part of a new initiative for Second Career, addressing the manufacturing industry. So if you were laid off from a manufacturing job on or after January 1st, 2019, then the pieces of the suitability assessment, including duration of employment, active job search, and work history, would no longer be considered, and that's part of the suitability assessment, which we'll talk about in just a second. So those pieces wouldn't be considered if you were laid off from your manufacturing job on or after January 1st, 2019. And again, completing other training within the past 2 years doesn't make you ineligible if you fit into this category. So these are the pieces of the suitability criteria. It is a points-based system. So points are assigned in each of these categories, depending on your situation. And you require a minimum of 16 points total to apply for Second Career. So as I had mentioned before, individuals who were laid off from the manufacturing sector after January 2019 still need to reach the 16-point minimum, but they would not be, they would be actually assigned maximum points in those 3 categories: in active job search, duration of unemployment, and work history. So you would already have maximum points in those sections, and then you would still need to meet the minimum of 16 points. So we'll just take a look at what the assessment looks like. So this is the suitability matrix. So you can see all of those categories are on the left side of the page, and then the points that would be assigned in each category at the top. And we're going to break this down section by section. So first we'll talk a little bit about active job search. So for active job search, the points that would be assigned go as follows. If you have been actively job searching for less than 13 weeks, then you would get 1 point in this section. If you've been actively job searching between 13 and 26 weeks, then you would get 2 points. And if you have been actively job searching for 26 weeks or more, then you would get 3 points. And active job search would really include only activities that you can show evidence that you have been doing. So you need to show documentation of the job search activities that that you've been doing during that period of time. That would be an evidence of 3 to 5 job search activities per day. And those activities could be things like, of course, applying for jobs online, having interviews, whether it's phone interviews or in-person interviews. It could be a networking event that you participated in or a job fair that you went to. It could be other types of networking activities that you were involved in. Maybe you reached out to someone on LinkedIn and had a phone conversation with them. So all of those types of things are what you can use to demonstrate your active job search. It's possible that a person may have been unemployed for over 6 months, but they may have only been actively job searching for 2 months, for example. The next section is duration of unemployment. So this is calculated from your layoff date. You would be assigned 1 point if you were laid off less than 13 weeks ago, 2 points if you were laid off between 13 and 26 weeks ago, and 3 points if it was more than 26 weeks. So the next section in the suitability assessment is educational attainment. So in this section, if you've already completed post-secondary education or apprenticeship, you would get 1 point. If you have completed high school and some post-secondary or apprenticeship training, but it's incomplete, then you would get 2 points. So for example, if you started a college program in 2010 and you didn't finish it for some reason, then you would get 2 points in that section. If you have high school completion or less, then you would get 3 points. If you are internationally trained, your credentials, your international credentials have been assessed and they're not recognized in Ontario, then you would get 3 points. If you were educated outside of Canada and your education hasn't been assessed, then you can either have it assessed or you would get 1 point in this category. So for work history, for this section, you would attain 1 point if you've worked in that particular occupation that you were laid off from for less than 3 years. You would get 2 points if you have 3 to 7 years working in that occupation, and 3 points if it has been more than 7 years. So for labor market prospects, the job that you want to be trained for needs to be NOC level B or level C. What that means, for those of you who aren't familiar with NOC codes, it relates to the level of education that one would need to attain to be able to get that type of work. So all of the training that would be eligible needs to either be NOC level B or NOC level C. Level B usually requires a college diploma, and level C may require that or a certificate from college. So this section relates to the requirement of a credential or a license. So if there's no credential or license needed, that would be, you would get 2 points in this section. If a credential or license is needed, then it would be 3 points. So what that relates to is essentially whether or not this occupation is regulated, whether there is a licensing body that is required for you to register with in order to work in that field. So some examples of regulated professions: many healthcare professions are regulated, like nursing, for example. There may be some engineering professions that might be NOC level B that would require a license. So there's a more detailed list of regulated professions that you could talk to a consultant and you could have access to, or you can just search for that online so that you can get a list of what those regulated professions may be. So in terms of the type of skills training, you would get 2 points if you would require academic upgrading in order to qualify for the training that you want to do. You would also get 2 points if you required language training first to be able to qualify for the occupational training. And if you don't need any of those things, if you're ready just to join the program and it leads to a certificate or diploma, then you would get 3 points. So again, a little bit more detail about the skills training. It can be vocational. That may be NOC skill level B or C. So again, requiring a diploma or a certificate from college. It can be short-term or long-term. Short-term refers to under 6 months, and long-term would be up to 24 months, but not more than that. It can include literacy and basic skills, as long as that is for, that's academic upgrading, as long as that is for employment purposes. Part-time skills training can be eligible. However, the cost of tuition and other instructional costs may be the only financial support that you would have access to, not the basic living allowance or other types of support. So it would just cover the training costs themselves if you were eligible for that. Correspondence, online, distance learning, single skill learning, or continuing education. Those things would be determined based on a sort of a thorough assessment, and it would need to clearly lead to employment as per the objective of the second career program. So the next section of the suitability assessment is the experience and occupational skills section. So if the job that you were laid off from is in NOC level B or C and limited opportunities for sustainable employment exist in that field, then you would get 2 points. If your experience is in a low skill job, which is referred to as NOC D, and limited opportunities for sustainable employment exist in that field, then you would get 3 points. NOC level A jobs are those that require university education or higher, and you'll see that that's not included here. So if that's the type of work that you were laid off from, you know, and you have those educational requirements already, then you would not get points in this category. I think it's generally considered that people who have that level of education may have sort of more transferable skills that they could utilize and apply to other areas of work. So the next piece that is looked at is the financial assessment. So what's considered here is your household income, your basic living expenses, the skills training and incremental costs that are associated with that, any costs that may be associated with disability needs, and it's determined what percentage a participant would need to contribute to their own training. So there's a detailed chart that you can look at to determine, based on your family size and your household income, how much of the training cost you would be expected to contribute to. That's something that would be provided to you once you connect with a consultant and go through the assessment process. So these are types of financial things that would not be considered, would not account toward your income. So all of these things: Ontario Works, ODSP, HST, GST, Child Tax Benefit, Universal Child Care Benefit, Ontario Child Benefit. There are all kinds of different things that would not necessarily require that you contribute to your own training costs. So, I mean, the next steps for you, we'll talk about sort of what the next steps would be in terms of if you are, you meet with the consultant virtually and you're determined to be eligible for this program, you know, what you're required to do next. So there's the first steps. We'll talk a little bit about doing research, showing your work, the things that are required for you to submit with your application for second career. We'll talk a little bit about your responsibilities as well as your consultant's responsibilities, and also just the timelines that are associated with that. So the first steps would be to meet with an employment consultant. And again, I would suggest for anybody who is looking for work, who is thinking that this could be an option, or is just looking for different options, to connect with a consultant. Part of that can include a second career assessment. And if you are eligible, then you can go forward with that. And if you're not, then you can work out an alternative plan with your consultant. You will discuss your situation, your training goals. Your consultant can support you to conduct labor market and training research. You are required to choose a career and a school and start your application. And again, as you know, the part of the requirement is to select training that relates to a career that's in demand. You may not already know how to do that labor market and research to determine if that career is in demand, but your consultant can help you with those resources so you can do that research. So those are the first steps. In terms of the research, it may include career exploration results, certainly your job search record. So again, going back to the suitability assessment and the active job search piece, this is where you are demonstrating that you've been actively job searching for the length of time that you have been, and that's recorded in your job search record. You can show your labor market research that shows not just whether or not the occupation that you're looking for training in is in demand, but also what the requirements are for that type of occupation, meaning like educational requirements and whether or not it's regulated. And you also need to research 3 different colleges. So you will apply to one, and you may have one that's sort of your priority that you'd like to attend, but you also need to research 2 others as well. And at least one of those on your list of 3 colleges that you're researching needs to be a community college. The others can be private colleges. There are lots of private colleges. The community colleges in and around Toronto would be Humber, George Brown, Centennial, and Seneca. But as I said, there are also lots of private career colleges, and when you're looking to do this research, again, your consultant can support you if you're not sure what colleges are out there. So your responsibilities in this would be to fill out the application itself, to gather all of the required documents that need to be provided to the ministry. You are responsible for conducting the labor market research and the college research. You also need to create your own job search record and keep it up to date, and also just to work with your consultant. Your consultant's responsibilities would be to assess your eligibility and your suitability, to support the application process. Also, once your application is complete, to review it to ensure that it's complete. Your consultant will submit your application on your behalf and do any necessary follow-ups with the ministry on that. So the typical processing time for a second career application once it's submitted is 6 to 8 weeks. The ministry would contact you directly with the result. So they would reach out to you directly to let you know if you've been approved or not. And again, second career is one option amongst many different programs and services. So if you are uncertain if you are eligible, or if you go through the application process and you aren't accepted, again, your consultant is there to support you in attaining your goals. And from my experience, what I've observed with many clients over the 13 years that I've been involved with ACCES is that there's lots of different ways that a person can attain their goals. And an employment consultant's role is to help each of you navigate that process. So that concludes the information that I have to share with you, but maybe we can take some questions now.
Thank you for the presentation, Joy. We'll give a few seconds for everyone to start typing their questions. And as Joy mentioned, Joy will be answering a lot of the general questions right now. And if you have questions that are specific to your case only, you can get in touch with one of our employment consultants. You can call your closest ACCES location, and your call will be forwarded to one of the available employment consultants who can start helping you with your job search and your second career journey. So first question here that I have is from Madhur. If I've been unemployed since the time that I landed, would I be eligible for second career?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? If you've been unemployed?
Yeah, so since as a newcomer, haven't been employed.
Okay, yeah, if you haven't yet been employed in Canada for the entire period of time that you've been a resident of Ontario, then you wouldn't be eligible for second career.
Thank you. And is there anything else that these people in the same situation can apply for, or?
Absolutely. So first thing that I would do is suggest to connect with an employment consultant and talk in more detail about your occupational background. There may be bridging programs that you could join that would help you get back to your field. There may also be other financial resources that you could access that could help you with that as well. So there's lots of different possibilities. I would suggest connecting with a consultant.
Thank you. All right, so, okay, I think we've answered that one as well. Okay, so in order to be considered for second career, how long does one have to be unemployed for?
So I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a specific period of time that you need to have been unemployed, but thinking back to the suitability assessment, the longer that you've been unemployed, the more points that you would get. So if you were just very recently laid off, again, I would suggest that you connect with a consultant and do the assessment. You can sort of find out where you fit in terms of how many points you have, and then you can go from there.
Thank you. And Mario has a question here. If someone's receiving EI benefits, if they apply for second career, would that affect their EI income?
So what it may mean is that your EI is maintained and second career supports you with your the cost of the training. You wouldn't be able to get basic living support from second career while you're on EI. So you would maintain your EI and maybe get support for the tuition cost. I have had some clients who have been on EI and their EI ends while they're in training. And if they meet the financial assistance component, then perhaps second career may start providing basic living allowance at that point.
Thank you, Joy. So if someone doesn't score a 16 on the matrix, can their application still be submitted?
Generally, no. The purpose of doing all of the sort of the layers of the assessment process is to only be referring people who meet the criteria. So if you went ahead and you did the assessment with a consultant and you didn't meet the minimum level of points, then your consultant would then offer you information about other ways that you may be able to attain your goal. The only thing I would add here is that sometimes what I've seen is that a person doesn't quite meet the required number of points because they haven't been laid off for long enough. So in that case, over time, if you were still unemployed, your points would go up. So what would happen in that case is that your consultant would support you with your job search. If you were still unemployed later, then your points could go up and you may still be able to apply for a second career. Hopefully that's clear.
Thank you. And is there somewhere where people can have a look at to see what are all the careers that are included in the second career program?
That's a great question. I don't know that there is a document that actually shows what careers are considered, but what a great website that you can use to just do occupational research, because again, the ministry wants to support people to find training in in-demand occupations. So if you go to the Job Bank website, which is www.jobbank.gc.ca, you can look up any occupation and find out what the labor market prospects are for that career.
Thank you, Joy. And are people able to choose a part-time diploma or certificate course for their second career?
That's certainly possible. If you were doing a part-time program, you would not be eligible for the basic living allowance for your second career. So it would only cover the tuition costs as long as you meet the other pieces of the criteria.
Thank you. And a bit of a specific question here, but a great question. If you are, if someone's in the middle of the application process and they get rehired, does that affect their application?
I would think it would. Again, if if you were laid off and then rehired, then you wouldn't necessarily need the training. So the purpose of the training and where second career came from is for people who were laid off and there really aren't a lot of jobs left in that sector. So if that were to happen to you, then you would need to inform your consultant and talk with them about that. Now, if it was an interim job, meaning a lower skill level job and low pay, and it doesn't relate to your profession, then that's something that I think would be determined on a case-by-case basis. So you would talk to your consultant about that and they could determine that with you.
Thank you. Another question here is, would somebody be able to take an online program in the US to be qualified for a second career?
That's a good question. That's not something that I've seen typically. My sense is that the preference would be that the program be offered here. I would suggest talking with a consultant about that. For example, if it was a program that doesn't exist in Canada, then we could inquire whether or not that would be possible. We could look into it further, but I think that the preference would be for local training.
Thank you. And how many points do you need to reach for the matrix?
Yeah, so the minimum, the minimum would be 16. You need 16 points to be able to apply.
And because of the current situation, because of COVID-19, are people able to apply for second career, or should they wait this out?
No, you absolutely can apply for second career now. Again, as long as you meet the eligibility and the suitability requirements, and you can demonstrate your need for financial assistance, this is a support that exists and is available to you.
Thank you. Would somebody get extra points if they were laid off twice in a year?
You would not get extra points, no. But if it adds to just demonstrating perhaps that the labor market in your sector is unstable. So it's certainly something that, you know, through your application, you would want to point that out, but it would not give you extra points, no.
Thank you. Oh, this is a good point here. If someone was let go or laid off and they're still on severance pay up to a certain amount of time, would they still be able to apply for second career?
Yeah, so that severance would be likely, I guess, would affect your ability to get
Mm-hmm.
basic living allowance. Again, you would have to show that you were laid off. So this is not a program that is meant for people who were terminated or fired from jobs in their field.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, if you were laid off and you have severance, you still may qualify.
Thank you. And would this be for someone who's on maternity leave but knows that they're not going back to work? I guess they're choosing not to go back to work, so that would be different.
Yes. Yeah, I have had clients who have been on maternity leave, and during the period that they were on maternity leave, their company closed.
Okay.
So that you would definitely want to look into second career as an option. But choosing to go back to work is a different story. Choosing not to go back is a different story. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a good question here. Let's say someone has worked in maybe 3, 4 different sectors. Which sector do they, I guess, count? Do they only look at the last sector they worked at?
Yeah, I would say that that's something to determine through doing the assessment with a consultant. But if you've had multiple different professional jobs, then generally I would say it would be the most recent one that would be utilized to determine your eligibility.
Thank you. And should there be a minimum number of weeks for the school or course to qualify?
There's a maximum, so the maximum would be 24 months. But as far as I know, short-term training, so training that's less than 6 months, could also qualify as well.
Thank you, Joy. And for those of you who might have missed the beginning of the webinar, you will get a recording. So everyone who has registered for this webinar today will get a recording in the next 48 hours. So stay tuned for that. Thank you, Joy. So yes, because the next question was how to get in touch with someone for second career. So you can see different ways to get in touch with us. If you do want to watch more webinars, again, we have this slide up here. You can watch, go to our website, click on accessemployment.ca/online event series. That's where all of our webinars are posted. We will post some more at the end of the week. And for now, we do have another one coming up tomorrow that you can check out. And if you'd like to book an appointment, call your closest ACCESS location and somebody will be able to get in touch with you once you've left them your information. Yes, thank you, Joy. So that's in front of you and you can take a look. So that answers that. I'm just quickly, yes, there were some people who came in late. So yes, you will get a recording. All right. Can you apply if you're currently doing a part-time survival job?
Yeah, so it would depend on what that survival job is and how it compares to the job that you had before. But in some cases that would be considered an interim job, and you may still be eligible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And what if the reason for losing the job, it says without cause, does that affect their application?
Yeah, so if you were terminated, whether it was with or without cause, you wouldn't be eligible. So this is the main purpose is to support people who were laid off.
Right.
Again, unless we're talking about an interim job being, you know, a lower skill, lower pay job than what you had before. If If you're still uncertain based on your own circumstances, contact your closest location and you can do the assessment.
Thanks, Joy. So a lot of people are on CRB since March. Could they apply for second career as well?
Yeah, I mean, if you were laid off,
Yes.
then yes, you could, and so it's certainly worth talking to a consultant about.
What about people who owned small businesses and unfortunately had to shut down? Would they be able to get into a second career program as well?
That's a great question. I would suggest that person to connect with a location to do the assessment. I don't see that come up as frequently. So off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure about that. So contact the closest location for the
Yeah,
assessment.
for sure,
Yeah.
Joy, because second career is such a tricky area that you really do need to talk to someone because it's a case by case scenario.
Yeah.
So, and we are all here to support you. So you can see our contact information on the screen. Whichever one's closest to you, call someone and we will be able to support you. Last question I have here is second careers considered a social assistance program?
Not, I wouldn't say so, not in the same sense as something like Ontario Works, for example. You know, I'm not sure if that question is coming up for a particular reason. If so, then I would definitely recommend contacting a consultant and just having a more detailed conversation about what that means to you and to kind of explore that further.
Thank you, Joy. I do know that the other webinars that we've been having with EO, they're a bit different because you're just offering information about resume writing and interview tips. Second career, again, is a tricky one. It's because it's personal to everyone, and that's why we always recommend getting in touch with an employment consultant who can help you out one-on-one. Oh, we have a question about the Newmarket location. You can call that number for the Newmarket location and someone will be able to help you. We don't know right now when our locations will be opening, but you will hear about it as we go on and as we start hearing from our government as well. But everything is online. We are here to support you online, so it really shouldn't make any difference at all. Give us a call and someone will be able to connect with you for sure. Okay, so laid off individuals, what does that cover? Does that cover people whose employment contract has ended?
Great question. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it can include people in that category. Yeah, people who had their contract ended or if you were laid off due to a shortage of work. Yeah. All of that is, if you may even have left a job and not be certain why you left that job or what, you know, whether you were laid off or terminated or what, you can find that out by looking at your record of employment that was issued to you from your employer. Sometimes it may have been given directly to you. Sometimes it would be submitted directly to Service Canada. So if you have a My Service Canada account, then you can check there and see your records of employment. Laid off individuals would have code A in the reason for unemployment section of that form.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joy. Very informative. You were able to give a lot of insight and information about second career. And everyone, if you still have any questions, like we mentioned, please give us a call at your closest location and someone will be happy to help you. This does bring us to the end of our webinar today. You will get a recording in the next 48 hours. So if you'd like to watch it again or for reference, or if you missed any of the beginning, you can watch it again. So thank you so much, Joy. Would you like to say anything before we end?
Just thank you all for participating. Thank you, Sonia, for co-hosting with me. And just I would encourage everyone to reach out to your closest location to talk further about how you can attain your goals. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Joy, and I hope everyone has a great day ahead. Stay safe, and we'll see you on our next webinar.